What's going on, guys? We've got some Cleanspark news to talk about. It came out this morning. We've got some large-scale power acquisition news for Cleanspark. They recently announced here today, October 29, a plan to increase their power under contract by 28% with 285 megawatts of power. There's some positives to this. There is a negative to this. The market isn't really reacting to this today. The market's a bit mixed in terms of the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin broke its 50 MA to the downside. And of course we have FOMC. And Cleanspark isn't really pumping, at least as of this upload, possibly because this expansion is expected in the first half of 2027, so quite a bit of a wait, but still some pretty good news regardless. We're going to talk about that. Of course, we'll look at Bitcoin's chart and go over what just happened with the 50 MA. It wasn't able to hold above the 50 MA on the daily, but also I want to talk about something that I just touched on in the last video. I titled it Bitcoin supply at lows, but I was very brief in showing you guys this, so I wanted to expand on it a little bit. This is the Bitcoin exchange balance. Back in January of 2024, right around when the spot Bitcoin ETFs went live, Bitcoin had a balance of 3 million coins on exchange. And right now, Bitcoin on exchanges is at a low, at about 2.15 million Bitcoin on exchange. Despite Bitcoin's price over $100,000, Bitcoin is continuing to be taken off of exchange. And in a lot of cases, this Bitcoin is getting locked away, being acquired by treasury companies, being acquired by countries even. We had news the other day about France wanting to own 2% of the Bitcoin supply, which seems like an impossible feat. But yeah, what we will continue to see is Bitcoin on exchange continuing to dwindle down until there is no Bitcoin and we're fighting for scraps of Bitcoin, fractions of Bitcoin. And one of my saddest realizations that I've said before is that retail, we're at a point where retail can no longer reasonably acquire one Bitcoin themselves. Unless, of course, you have quite a bit of money parked away, you're never going to own one Bitcoin. This was the last cycle to do so. In our bear market in crypto winter, Bitcoin went as low as 15,000. It's never getting that low again. Mark my words. This was the last cycle where one could reasonably acquire a full Bitcoin. It's just going to get more and more difficult, next to impossible, as the cycles progress. Now let's go into this Cleanspark news. Cleanspark enters the Texas market with land and large-scale power acquisition to rapidly deploy an AI data center in Greater Houston. And this 271-acre site is positioned on a major fiber backbone with 285 megawatts of power. The transactions position Cleanspark to deliver scalable, resilient, and energy-efficient capacity to meet accelerating demand from AI, cloud, and enterprise workloads. Cleanspark utilized some cash and also some shares of the company's stock at closing, with additional cash upon the occurrence of post-closing events. Might be another reason we didn't get a pump yet on this news. The day is still young. If they're using common stock to acquire certain things, that likely means dilution. One thing I've said to a lot of you guys is the last cycle Cleanspark was the of all the Bitcoin miners, the most dilutive stock in the last cycle, and that didn't stop it from rallying like crazy. In certain circumstances, dilution can actually be a good thing. Am I rooting for dilution left and right? Absolutely not. But if it wasn't for dilution, Cleanspark would be nowhere near where they are today. And that is 100% guaranteed. But let's not see a bunch of dilution moving forwards. Of course, they have touted that they haven't diluted since like November of 2024. Does this break their streak? Maybe, maybe not. I think so. Now, I'm not going to read every single piece and detail here. I will leave it down below for you guys in the description. But as said by Matt Schultz, the CEO, this acquisition marks a major milestone in Cleanspark's strategic business evolution. Securing power and land at this scale in one of the nation's most attractive markets positions us to meet the accelerating demand for AI compute while continuing to deliver long-term value for our shareholders. We continue to lead in Bitcoin mining, are actively reviewing AI conversion opportunities across our existing portfolio, and have now entered the Texas market with a site purpose acquired for an AI campus. The site sits strategically, this is said by Harry Sudock, the chief business officer. This site sits strategically between Houston and Austin at the intersection of abundant power, fiber connectivity, and pro-development energy policy. As we move into the design and construction phases of this project, we will evaluate opportunities to secure additional energy on site and pursue other regional projects in parallel. Energization of more than 200 megawatts is expected in the first half of 2027. Quite a long wait. Maybe that's why the market isn't popping on this news. Maybe it's because Cleanspark offered shares for this acquisition. Maybe it's because today's the Fed meeting. Bitcoin's not doing too hot. The Bitcoin miners today are a bit mixed. Here's a WGMI Bitcoin mining ETF. There's definitely more green than red currently, but we do have some names that are in the red. Irons Red, Wolf, BitDeer, a few others. And this goes by weighting. Iron is their largest weighting with a 14%. If you want some exposure to iron, you could consider WGMI. It also has Nvidia, things built around Bitcoin mining, not just the Bitcoin miner stocks themselves, but also, you know, chip stocks and things like that. I would be very cautious buying this late in the cycle, but something like WGMI heat map does give you exposure to the Bitcoin mining sector without you having to outright choose a stock. You just get some general exposure. It's a great way to do it if you don't want to sit here and spend a bunch of time on what you should buy. Now, I did want to show you guys Bitcoin on the chart, and Bitcoin got rejected at its 50 MA. Yesterday was looking good, looking like we were going to hold that 50 MA. We didn't get a candle to close above again, and we got rejected, starting to fall towards the 200 MA. At 109,000. If we don't hold this 109,000, there's a chance we come down to the 50 MA on the weekly to retest it down towards 102,000. I kind of find that unlikely, but it's Bitcoin. We'll see. You know, I mentioned this before that with this 50 MA on the weekly, we get a drop and we got to retest. Both times we got to drop right to it, quickly recover it up. You know, we're talking like almost a 10,000 or over $10,000 Bitcoin price gain, and then came back and retested it. You know, maybe we get that here. We got that drop right down to that 50 MA nearly, come back up, nearly a same thing, about a $10,000 gain here on Bitcoin, and then what do we come back down, retest 102, and use it as a launching pad, like we have seen in the past on the 50 MA. It's going to be crucial that we don't drop under it, come back up and get rejected at it like we saw last cycle here when we dropped under the 50 MA, came back, got rejected, and crypto winter ensued from, you know, we got rejected at 47,000, and of course our crypto winter low was right here, 15,000. So keep an eye on the 50 MA. In my opinion, it is crucial that we hold it. And on the weekly, we did see a bearish divergence. We saw the RSI dropping down, but the price went higher right here. Now I wonder how much the market is going to react positively to a rate cut, because the market completely expects it at this point. It's a 98% chance nearly of a rate cut. You know, if this was a 50-50 and the market was uncertain what Powell was going to do and we get that rate cut, I think the market would definitely be more excited. I do think that because it is already completely expected, we might not see as big of a rally after we get through the meeting, depending on what Powell says, of course. If he sounds very optimistic about the labor market and inflation and sounds somewhat dovish and expects more cuts, the market could definitely react positively. But you know, if he cites that the labor market is getting worse and inflation is rising, that definitely puts us in a tough spot. But anyways, what do you guys think? Are we getting a rate cut or not? Are you the 2% that thinks we're not? Do you think we're getting more than a 25 basis point cut? What do you think about this Cleanspark news? It is great news, although it will take quite a while before it comes into fruition. If you follow the cycle, 2027 would basically be when we're kind of getting out of crypto winter, if we do see a crypto winter, that is, of course. But thanks so much for watching, guys. If you made it this far, consider hitting the like, subscribe, ringing the notification bell. It definitely helps me out. Thanks as always, and I'll see you next time.